Hello, lovely people. You are listening to the fourth episode of Speaking of Europe. Today's topic is Italy's new governance crisis. We are talking about the new developments in Italy with my friend and Italian political philosopher Federico Giovannini. You may have listened to our first conversation a month ago, which was actually the first episode of this podcast series. Back then, we talked about the rise of the far right in Italy. This time, we talk about the possible fall of the far right in Italy. Italy is currently governed by a coalition of the populist party Five Star Movement and the far right populist party Lega. Matteo Salvini, who is the leader of the far right party and the Minister of Internal Affairs, has threatened with new elections in the country. He did this because polls have indicated that his far-right party Lega could become the biggest party. But instead of an opportunity for Salvini, it might have meant the end of his career. More and more Italian politicians, including Salvini's coalition partners of the Five Star Movement, are turning against him, calling him a traitor or an assault for democracy. First things first, we apologize for yet another belated release. We actually had this episode ready to go online 2 days ago, but seriously, so much happened in Rome in the last 2 days. So we had to make sure that our conversation with Federico Giovannini was not suddenly outdated. Well, it didn't get outdated. Things only seem to have gotten worse for Salvini and his far-right party. The Prime Minister of Italy, Giuseppe Conte, and I hope I pronounced that well, decided to step down yesterday. After Salvini's threat to end the coalition and to start elections, Conte decided that the current far-right populist coalition has become ungovernable for the country. While Salvini was sitting next to Prime Minister Conte in the parliament, Prime Minister Conte stood up and started a 30 minutes long rage against Salvini and his party. Just to list down some accusations from Conte's side. Salvini is only acting in his own interest. He called Salvini immoral for using religious symbols and religious language during his campaign. By doing this, Conte argued, Salvini offended the sentiments of Italian believers and attacked the religious neutrality of the modern state. What's important to note here is that Conte never really criticized Salvini. Conte has been governing the country for the past year, while Salvini was his Minister of Internal Affairs, possibly the most important minister there is in the Italian cabinet. So I think this really shows that Salvini's political enemies have smelled blood. While Salvini was just 2 weeks ago the most popular politician of the country, based on the number of retweets and likes that he would receive on a daily basis, today he is the favorite target of Italian national politicians. How did this escalate so quickly? So guys, without further ado, you are listening to a new episode of Speaking of Europe.
Sono queste le ragioni che mi inducono a valutare come fortemente responsabile la decisione di innescare la crisi di governo. Per questa via, permettetemi di dire che il Ministro dell'Interno ha mostrato di inseguire interessi personali e di partito.
I think we can start recording.
Okay, you're recording?
Yeah.
The sunlight is right on your face.
That's perfect.
You look handsome.
That's good.
Anyways, Federico, thanks so much
Hola.
for being back here in the show. Well, actually, for the first time, we're not talking face to face, but we're talking from Skype. You're still in Barcelona, I'm in Tallinn. And man, it's actually so funny. Last time we talked about how the far right took over Italy and how the left completely failed to take advantage of the social problems in Italy. And now something is happening in Italy that makes our first conversation much more relevant, or even more relevant than it already was, right?
Yeah.
Wait, let's start describing again what kind of government exists in Italy right now for all those people who are not aware of that.
So basically, the two main populist parties, Northern League, which is now the League, and Five Star Movement, they made parliamentary coalition in order to govern, because Five Star Movement was the first party the elections, but needed to make a coalition, and the center-left party, the Democratic Party, refused to make it. So they had to open the table to the League, which used to be independentist northern movement, and now is a nationalist party, led by Salvini. And their alliance was based on a contract they made together, and the contract was the result of the overlaps and some concessions they made to each other regarding their programs. Okay? So anytime they made something, or they discussed new legislative movement or bills or whatever, they always refer to the contract that they made.
Yeah. This is very common for most Europeans, right? I think most European people live in countries where coalitions are most of the time necessary. So the contract or the manifest, or however you want to call this document that is being signed by the coalition partners, is often during the governing period more important than what the parties stand for, right?
Yeah.
And what we've seen in the last year of this particular and peculiar government, first of all, it's a peculiar government because you have two populist parties. Lega is a far-right party, and the Five Star Movement has a very unclear position in this right-left paradigm. Some of the Five Star Movement politicians are clear leftists, other ones are more nationalist and right-wing. And as we said in the previous episode that we did together, which was actually the first episode of this podcast series, the Five Star Movement lost a lot in popularity because their ideology continued to be very unclear during this governmental period, whereas the far-right party Lega had a very clear ideological position, a far-right position. So everyone who was on the far right saw this as a confirmation to vote for Lega in the next elections, and everyone on the left started to doubt who to vote for to begin with, right? And that is how Five Star Movement was losing its popularity. And then I think last week something happened, right? Because we are already for weeks and months, we are seeing in the Italian polls that Five Star Movement is losing popularity and Lega is gaining popularity. So from the perspective of Lega, it's actually very positive to have as soon as possible elections organized, right?
Yeah. Salvini felt that it gained momentum and he wanted to capitalize it.
Salvini is the leader of the far-right Lega and the Minister of Internal Affairs. Yeah.
Yeah, Salvini really was aware that if we headed to elections soon, he would win. But the thing is that in order to make this government fall, he needed like alliances in the Senate. Anyway, like in the parliament, the problem is that Lega came to govern with 17%.
Whereas Five Star Movement, how much percent did they have?
Around 30 something.
Wow, yeah, that's a difference. Yeah.
But you understand that you can't make the government fall if you don't have any other alliances, right?
Why can't you make a government fall if you don't have allies?
Because with only 70% of the seats, you can't. In Italian, we say sfiduciare.
Oh,
A vote of confidence?
a vote of confidence, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Jaran.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so basically, he wanted to make a vote of confidence, but like in the Senate, he found no allies, and I mean, he found himself realizing that is not the like he can't also like be above the institutions. He really felt like a god, Salvini.
You
He really
need
felt like
you need to have a majority in the Senate in order to make the government fall, right? You need to the support of the majority of the Senate. And that is what Lega needed to find. And Lega was looking for this majority in the last 2 weeks by trying to create an alliance with Berlusconi's party, Forza Italia. What was the moment that triggered Salvini to say, basta, that's enough, let's drop this government, let's hold new elections in Italy?
well, the thing is that I think it's just that we are really close to the moment where there is the manovra finanziaria, which means that we have to find all the financial resources to make all the objectives of this government happen in terms of money as well.
So the moment to create the budget for
Yeah.
policies.
Yeah, well, to actually found it, to actually implement it. But obviously, Salvini wanted to avoid this point because all of his policies they're not bearable for Italian budget. He wants to do a flat tax. Of course, he also wanted to make he wanted to change the pension system. Many things that are very expensive. And you can't have all of them together. So if you want to reform the pension system, you cannot have a flat tax. You have to increase taxes on the high class, obviously, not reduce them.
Yeah.
And obviously, nobody wanted to face the budget time, I think.
I can imagine at least Five Star Movement was unwilling to help Salvini even calculate this budget and even come to...
Yeah,
Yeah.
the thing about this government is that you have two big mouths, and they constantly make, they still make propaganda during the government.
Yeah, so the
During
campaign
the-
is still going on for both parties, for both the Five Star Movement and Lega.
So when it comes then to put things into practice, then they sit at the table and they say what to do. And then doesn't matter if it really reflects the promises, because the next day they can both go out of the office and tell the journalists a new story.
Wow, so yeah, if I understand it correctly, currently the political climate in Italy, even already before Salvini started to trigger this idea of crashing the current government, you have two populist parties, two very loud populist parties with opposing ideas about how society should be. They are governing together. This government is basically unified by a document that they signed together. But at the same time, those two parties are still campaigning and trying to trash the other governing party.
Yeah. The campaign never stopped. Another thing that brought Salvini to call for elections, to try to call for elections, was the fact that obviously for different reasons he couldn't do anything that Lega and him wanted to do. So he started to call the Five Star Movement the no guys instead of the yes men, because for anything that he wanted to do, they would say no. Obviously, if it was not in the contract, or obviously if it's something that it's beyond the reach of the government or whatever, they would say no.
Just to play the devil's advocate, if we refer this again to an earlier conversation that you and I had, it's not completely alien that Salvini is calling the Five Star Movement the no people, the no man, because for us, for you and I, it has often been hard to understand what the Five Star Movement is standing for. They're clearly anti-establishment. They are clearly anti a lot of movements, anti-right, anti-left, anti everything. But what do they really stand for? That that indeed seems to be unclear. In that sense, Salvini has a point. Well, if you ask me what does Salvini stand for, it's very easy for me to answer. Less immigrants, more national sovereignty, a more homogeneous culture, and so on, you know? And if you ask me what does Five-Star Movement stand for, I have no idea. I kind of agree with Salvini that they are no man.
No, the thing is that they appear as no man because if you have an ideology, then what you do and what you don't do, they kind of connect. There is a coherence behind it, you know? So when you don't do something, you understand it in virtue of the connection it has with what you do. Yeah, so I mean, Five-Star Movements doesn't have an ideology, so the things that they actually made and did, you don't have them in the background when they say no to something, because there is no way to connect them, you know? There is no real connection between the things they propose and the things they reject.
Yeah, it's like like maybe to compare it with this, like when someone, if you ask a politician, do you support the European Union? And he says, no, I'm a nationalist. Right, and it's clear.
Yeah.
And you ask him, do you support more immigrants? And he says, no, I'm a nationalist. Okay, then it's clear, like he's a nationalist. But when you would ask this to a Five-Star Movement, the answer would be much more vague. You would ask him, do you support the European Union? He just says no. And do you support more immigrants? He just says no. Are you nationalist? No. You're also not a nationalist. What are you then? Like, at least with a nationalist, you understand what you vote for. So, okay, well, let's go back for a second. So Salvini calls Five-Star Movement no man, and that is the reason why you can't govern with them anymore. At least that's what he says.
Yeah, that's what he says.
Yeah.
So we already said in the last episode how this struggle between these political forces is really based on communication and on the image you convey to the people. Up until last week, it's been the king at it. When he wanted to propose the vote of confidence, then man, it really looked like a wannabe dictator. So what happened is that everyone turned against him.
Salvini made a huge miscalculation because he thought that if I cancel the government right now, if I manage to cancel the government right now, then there will be new elections, and according to the polls, I will become the biggest party. He would ideally try to create an alliance in the next government with a right-wing party that is not as extremist as their party is, and this is Forza Italia. And Forza Italia has been the governing party from the 90s up until the late zeros, right? Under Berlusconi. Salvini and Berlusconi under one right-wing government. Is that very probable, according to you?
No. And I think I know why. That's why I'm answering and that's why you asked me.
No, and I think I know why.
So Berlusconi is really clever, and he knows how to keep his seat. He's in fact the longest serving prime minister of post-war Italy, as you pointed out earlier. And Salvini. So what we said about Salvini last time, and then I quickly answer, was that he should be careful because today politicians, they rise and fall really quickly as high they go, right? And that was the same with Renzi. Renzi got like 40% at the European elections with the Democratic Party.
Renzi is a former prime minister. He's from the center-left party, the Democratic Party, right? And he was a prime minister before this government.
Yeah, but he also said that he will probably soon make his own centrist party.
Okay.
For the next elections.
He's not even left-wing enough for the Democratic Party.
No, not at all. And anyway, so Salvini should have been careful because it was really rising in a spectacular way, I should say, but it could easily fall. And obviously, I think this is what's happening now. And someone like Berlusconi, that knows what happens in the palace, right? In the governing buildings. He could see it coming. He knew he should be cautious because Where can you go with Salvini? Salvini is just rushing, because he was really during this last year. Salvini rushed in terms of the statements he made, in terms of the alliance you could foresee him changing, in terms of the harshing of his policies, in terms of everything, right?
I can completely imagine being that guy and just thinking, like, you just see yourself turning from a very insignificant politician with a very insignificant party that has been there for very long, Lega, but it was always a very unpopular party, and he managed to turn it into one of the biggest forces of Italian politics, becoming the most popular politician of Italy, getting the most likes, getting the most shares, and that all in like less than 2 years. I can completely imagine that Salvini is now in such a
Bubble.
Euphoria that he thinks, I mean, I can do really whatever I want. I can just stop coalitions. I can stop governments. I can do whatever I want. Really.
Yeah, that's true. And ultimately, Berlusconi is a moderate politician.
Yeah.
In his nature, and he always played around with the far right in order to gain much more support. But I think he knew that with this step was way too much. And I think he got cautious, about it. He got cautious, and of course Salvini is going with another pace, right?
Obviously, I mean, I can also imagine that Berlusconi is looking at the 5-star movement, and the 5-star movement really getting overshadowed by the far right. I think Berlusconi is also just afraid that his right-wing party will become completely overshadowed by Salvini's party if they enter government.
Of course, yeah.
Like the 5-star movement case makes people very afraid that if they go into a coalition with Salvini, they will just get eaten by him.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Salvini is taking over the political spectrum, eating up the right and the center as well a bit.
Okay, so I think we covered the right-wing thing, right? Yeah, I'm gonna refer again to our very first episode that I did with Federico. And Federico said back then, the biggest failure of the left and the reason why the far right rose into power in Italy is because the center-left party, the Democratic Party, refused to form a coalition with the populist party 5-star movement. And when that happened, the far right, Lega, took over and turned a huge opportunity for the left into a huge opportunity for the far right. Now, It seems as if the Democratic Party has listened to our podcast episode, because exactly what you regretted so much about the Democratic Party is now seems to be reversed, right?
Yeah.
And that is the thing that Salvini really didn't take into consideration. So what happened, Federico?
So this happened. Salvini goes for vote of confidence. He fails. And clearly 5-star movement and the prime minister don't want to have anything to do with Salvini anymore. By the way, I just read that he said, either we go for the vote, or we go for elections, or we could sit back at the table and go back to what we were doing.
That's what Salvini said.
That's what Salvini just said. And because he said, I won't give up the Minister of the Internal Affairs. And the 5-star movement said, you're literally you're mental, and you said you wanted to end it, so what are we talking about?
5-star movement basically said that Salvini went mental, but they even called him a traitor, right? There was this trending topic in Italian Twitter, hashtag Salvini traditore.
No, what the... Man, they use my vocabulary.
Anyways, man. So you didn't know about this? You didn't know about this hashtag?
No. I don't have Twitter.
Oh, you don't have Twitter? I forgot. I've actually... I retweeted all of your old useless tweet, but you never reacted to it.
No, okay, then I'll go back to Twitter. So yeah, a five-star movement said, no, we can't go back to the table, obviously. And in the meantime, what happens is that Renzi himself, he proposed a kind of institutional alliance with the five-star movement, okay?
An institutional alliance between the center-left Democratic Party and the populist five-star movement.
Yeah. Just to carry on, just to just to take care of the budget phase, and then go to elections. And that's very surprising for everyone. So what happened is that Renzi proposed an institutional alliance, but then also not from Renzi but from others, the idea of a political alliance came up.
Yeah, what's the difference?
Well, the difference is this: institutional alliance is we don't like each other, but for the love of Italy, we make the budget thing, and then we go to elections. Political alliance is we see what's common between us, and then we carry on until the end of the legislative of this legislation to make all these policies, that we share with each other. Anyway, obviously the institutional alliance was just propaganda for Renzi, because Renzi had to clean up his image, and now he could look like the moderate, responsible savior of Italy, which takes care of the budget and of the economic damages that the crazy populists made, He's the responsible one, he's the one that can take care of the economy, of the budget, he's the moderate guy, and of course, and nobody really, took that seriously, this idea. But from this, the idea came out of a political alliance, which was supported from both sides of the two parties and some of their voters.
So the institutional alliance really confirmed this image of the Democratic Party of being very arrogant, saying like, you populists, you kids, you messed up everything, and now we are here to form a temporarily institutional alliance to just make sure that the budget will be fixed, and so that the country basically doesn't collapse. And then that means that they expect an election to come very soon, right? And then they will take advantage of that as the only adult party, the Democratic Party. But now a political alliance, that really shows that the Democratic Party seems to be ready to play as an equal towards the five-star movement, right? Yeah. And that really breaks the image of them being the arrogant elite. I think that's the surprising thing.
One difference to the 2016... Wow, man, it's been 2 years. What? 16? No, what am I saying?
Wasn't it last year?
Wow, man. Yeah, no, I'm sorry, man. This is Barcelona. Sorry. And sometimes I don't even know what day it is. Sorry. One difference from the 2017 situation, where the Democratic Party was confronted with the possibility of making a political alliance with in the parliament with the five-star movement, is that the current leader is not Renzi anymore. Okay, it's Zingaretti, which is more leaning towards the left, and Zingaretti was the president of the region Lazio, and in Lazio he governed with the five-star movement.
So he has a lot of experience.
So he has experience with like governing with the five-star movement. I'm not saying that this is gonna happen. I'm just saying that you see that the possibilities are different without Renzi, and right now they're working on it, and actually we have to see how. We don't know what's gonna happen yet, but there are a few possibilities. One is that this government stays until they make the budget and they go for elections. The smallest one, is that this government stays, but I don't think it's gonna happen. The other one is that five-star movement and the Democratic Party ally in an institutional way, like Renzi proposed. The other one is that there is a political alliance with a proper program with five-star movement and the Democratic Party, or Mattarella, which is the president of Italy, it just comes ahead and says, okay, we need a technical government because this is like we have to make the budget somehow, and nobody knows how to do it in the parliament. We have a technical government, and then we call for elections. I don't know. maybe I mean everyone will react badly at it, but maybe I don't know. But there are so many possibilities right now.
Yeah, concerning the last option that you pointed out, just for all those Europeans who are living in presidential systems, the Italian president, unlike the French president or the American president, doesn't have much power, right?
Once you get out of the institutional track, it's like, okay, now you as we say in Italy, you're shitting out of the toilet. So done. Now we have to fix this, you know. But I mean, politically it is neutral, but institutionally it keeps the balance. I think there's going to be a political alliance between Five Star Movement and Democratic Party, simply because Five Star Movement can't go on with Salvini right now, you know. Like Salvini even proposed to go on with Di Maio being the new prime minister. They rejected it. So I mean, this alliance will end, and I think Democratic Party and Five Star Movement will form a political coalition now, political alliance, because it will show that it is not just Salvini and Five Star Movement, but there's also Democratic Party. And in terms of identity and you know, like, and ending the bipolarism that made Lega so strong, it is everyone is kind of better off in terms, you know, of political tacticism and strength. You know what I mean?
Federico, thank you so much for having me. No, that's the other way around.
Keep it. Please keep it. Don't cut this off.
Federico, thank you so much for being at our show. I secretly hope that you're right as well. And I will speak soon. I'm sure we'll speak soon, man. Italy will shake again very soon. That's for sure.
We like to dance, that's why.
All right, man. See you.
Love you, man.
Okay. So this was the formal goodbye.
Yeah, with the love you, man.
Yeah, of course.
Very Italian. So can I end the?
Yeah.